All right, so welcome everyone to our monthly immigration series webinar for the month of August. I appreciate you all for hopping on. We are going to start with introductions. So if you haven't already, if you can just go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat, let us know where you're joining us from, your name, your pronouns as well. So go ahead and drop that information into the chat. As usual, we are recording, and then we will be sharing that link to the recording as well as the slides with everyone. So just want to remind folks about that. No need to take notes or anything like that. We will include everyone in the follow-up email with that information, as well as any links that we share with folks. But yes, please go ahead and keep introducing yourself. Let us know who you are, where you're joining us from, your name, pronouns, and all that good stuff. All right, so with that, we'll do some staff intros. So my name is Luis Ojeda, pronouns are he, him, based out in Fresno, and I'm the organizing manager. And I'll turn it to Ashley to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ashley, she, her. I'm the organizing director based out of our San Francisco office. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Fabulous. So on deck for tonight, we've got welcome and introductions, which we just did. We'll share some national and state updates, and then hopefully we'll have a good amount of time towards the end of the call to do a discussion. I would love to hear from folks in terms of what you are seeing on the ground, what are the types of trainings and resources folks need. So think about those a little bit, but we'll have some time to discuss those at the end. And then again, we'll have some opportunities for folks to come off mute and share and let us know what you're seeing on the ground as well. And then we'll close for the evening. So we will go ahead and get started. So we wanted to start with some national updates. During our call last month, I think at that point it had passed HR 1, the Budget Reconciliation Bill, had passed through the Senate, if I'm not mistaken, but hadn't actually been approved and signed into law. But since then, as you can see in this picture of a very diverse group of people celebrating the passage of this bill. And we wanted to sort of highlight all of the money that's going to go to immigration. Here you can see the total of over 170 billion dollars that's going to go through different aspects of immigration. And we wanted to sort of highlight some of the really key and major pieces. So a big chunk of that money, 51.6 billion, is going to go to construction and maintenance of the border wall, as well as CBP checkpoints and CBP facilities. So that is a very large amount. Additionally, $45 billion is going to go to additional detention capacity expansion. So this is going to allow for more detention centers to be built or to be started or converted if it's a facility that already exists, which we'll share a little bit about some of the ones that we're already hearing about as well. So again, that's a huge chunk of that, a total 170 billion. But additionally, $30 billion is going to enforcement and removal, including hiring of ICE agents, transportation costs, and detaining of families. As I'm sure you all have seen and heard about the articles where ICE is essentially offering bonuses and incentives to try and recruit folks to apply to be ICE agents. And so the number of ICE agents is growing tremendously, and they are going to be doing a lot of hiring to try and expand their capacity. So again, almost $30 billion. This is a huge, huge amount. Additionally, we've got 13.5 billion for state immigration and border enforcement cost reimbursement funds. So as you may have heard, and we've talked about, for example, in Florida, where they are deputizing local law enforcement to act as ICE agents or immigration agents. And so that some of that can be there. But again, we're seeing things happen all across the country, and it looks a little bit different. Another 10 billion for cost reimbursements to fund border enforcement, and then there's several other categories of also billions of dollars for Border Patrol agents and vehicles, border technology, and then also processing at the border, including for unaccompanied children, and other measures at the border. But yeah, I think just we wanted to sort of break that down. There's a great breakdown by the American Immigration Council where all these numbers come from, and it's linked here. Again, we'll include those in the follow-up slide that you can take a look at, read more in depth what all of this means. But overall, again, it's a tremendous amount of money, and it's only going to mean that more people are going to be detained and arrested by immigration. And so, what we're seeing right now is really only the beginning. We're only 6 months into the administration. And so obviously there's still a lot of time left. And obviously a lot of this money is going to take some time as well to spend. So all the recruitment, all of the detention centers that they're planning to build and get started, obviously all that is going to take time. But again, it's just a tremendous amount of money, and its impact is going to be felt very broadly and all across the country. And again, this image really it just speaks volumes, right, to the way that folks are celebrating the passage of this bill and all the harm that's going to come to it. But again, this number is really hard to wrap your mind around, but we wanted to sort of pause and sort of break down some of those dollar amounts and where they're going to be going to. But again, encourage folks to read this article that really breaks down some of that funding in greater depth and detail for folks to take a look at. All right, another thing we wanted to sort of share and take a moment to reflect on, as we've talked about in the past, with relation to TPS, temporary protection status. We have shared the bad news in the past around TPS for Venezuelans. In this case, we have an update for folks who have TPS from Honduras, Nepal, and Nicaragua. So a federal judge in San Francisco last week ordered a halt to the Trump administration's decision to end TPS for 60,000 people from these three countries. And so again, that was slated to those three countries. The TPS for those three countries was slated to come to an end really soon. But fortunately, there's been a halt to this. And I'm sure that you all remember or have seen a bunch of different cases for different countries trying to challenge the Trump administration's attempt to end TPS for a large swath of countries. And so here in this example for these three countries, it's sort of the TPS has been extended to at least November 18th when the next hearing happens. So again, we'll sort of see how this plays out. But again, this is another attempt to slow down the process for the Trump administration's attack on all these folks who have legal status, right, who did things the right way and all that stuff that folks talk about. And again, this impacts 60,000 people. So again, potentially this is another group of people who could lose their status in the coming months and years to come. And again, there's a link here that you can read more about the order and as we monitor the situation with this case. So I wanted to sort of step back and sort of review the status of TPS as it relates to the various countries that currently have TPS in place. So these three these two here that we've highlighted have now ended. So in Afghanistan, that wrapped up last month, and then for Cameroon just yesterday. And then we've talked a little bit about the attempts to end TPS for folks from Haiti, and currently it's slated to end early next year. And then you can see that a variety of different countries also have an upcoming timeline that is coming soon in terms of the TPS status ending for a lot of people. And so again, just want to sort of flag this and note the number of people from all these countries whose TPS protection is ending. And again, this is a large swath of people who may lose their status and again be eligible potentially for deportation if they don't have other opportunities for other immigration opportunities for them to take advantage of. So again, linked here is more information from USCIS that has more information about each of the countries. But again, all of these, a lot of these are still being challenged, as I mentioned, in the court system. And so some of this may change. Some of these end dates may be pushed back. But we'll sort of see how that plays out in the coming months and years as well, right? Some of these go all the way through next year, 2026. So there's definitely a lot of variance in terms of end dates, depending on the countries. Another piece of good news, there was obviously folks have been following all of the immigration raids that have been happening all across Southern California. And there was this one piece of good news last month that really I think is a good piece of news amongst a lot of bad news. So there was a federal judge there that issued a temporary restraining order, which essentially stops DHS from conducting unlawful immigration arrests and protects access to legal counsel in Southern California. And so this is a case that ACLU of Southern California and NorCal were involved in, along with other organizations like the NDLON, the National Day Labor Organizing Network, and CHAIRLA, Coalition for Humane Immigrants' Rights as well. And so again, I think much of what we've been seeing across Southern California, and even in other parts of the state as well, has been folks being arrested just based solely the color of their skin. And so this court order bars ICE from arresting people without a warrant or reasonable suspicion, and then also stopping individuals based on race or ethnicity and denying people access to an attorney while in custody. So obviously this is just a temporary restraining order, so this is not sort of final. Obviously, DHS and the federal government can continue to appeal and challenge all of this, but obviously it is sort of going in the right direction in terms of trying to put a stop to the arrests of folks in Southern California. So again, I'm sure folks have seen the images and have seen all of the various videos and things of that nature of folks being arrested. But again, we hope that this will be the first of many steps where there'll be more accountability for immigration as it relates to the arrests that they are making. But again, much remains to be seen in terms of how all of that will play out. And here is a link to more information about the case that folks can read if folks are interested in looking at the order and more information about that case as well. And then also, if you click these images as well, you can get linked to the Instagram Instagram page for Immigrant Defenders Law Center, who has this up as well. Okay, and then another thing we also wanted to note in terms of what's happening. So again, this huge bill that's allocating more funding for immigration detention all across the country. We're seeing news headlines about various different states or locations all across the country where there are plans to build detention centers. And so here, for example, one in Texas at an Army base in El Paso with capacity for 5,000 beds. And the plan here is to essentially build them as tent camps. Obviously, major concerns. Texas is a very hot place. And so obviously the idea of putting 5,000 people in tents in an Army base in Texas is deeply concerning. But again, that's 5,000 people that this camp would have space for. And so again, really deeply concerning for that. And then Florida as well is allegedly prepping for another detention center near Jacksonville. Again, and this is also a training site for the Florida National Guard. So again, other federal facilities and venues where they are taking advantage of, and they're able to use the space to hold more immigrants. And then similarly in New Jersey, at a military base. Another word, more word of another detention center being opened up there as well. Here in Florida, this one has capacity for about 2,000, or will have capacity for about 2,000. So again, we're talking about a major expansion of immigration capacity. And we know that the more beds that are built, the more space that is allocated for detaining, for holding immigrants. That means more people are going to be detained in order to be able to fill up all these bed spaces. So again, it's a deeply concerning bit of news. And again, this is just 3 examples, but there is a ton of others that are being rumored or in discussion. And so again, over the next year or so, as the administration continues to spend some of that $170 billion that it just got to be able to expand their immigration detention capacity, we are very likely to hear more and more news about these centers starting up. And then additionally, I also linked, and so all of these, if you click the images, you'll be linked to the articles if you want to read more about them. And then I also wanted to just flag this New York Times article that just came out that highlighted the detention centers in Louisiana. And it talks about how there's a sort of a network or a deportation hub, as they refer to it, in Louisiana, where many people are being sent there and then either being held in detention, as we saw with several folks, but then also are being transferred from there or deported to other countries as well. And so it has a really interesting breakdown there that I wanted to sort of show folks what it looks like, just because I thought it was a really interesting piece. And I think it's also sort of a preview of what it could look like in your community as well, as they again continue to expand these centers. So here it sort of highlights some pictures in terms of what it looks like. But one thing I wanted to sort of note is in Louisiana, again, in the airport, it actually also has a bed spaces for 400 people in the airport, which again allows them to funnel folks as they're being transferred to here. You can see buses and planes. They're able to hold people also at the airport who are awaiting transfer via other methods of transportation. And so again, just sort of highlighting that as sort of a tool that they're using to sort of expand their capacity. Here you can also see a map of the various detention centers in Louisiana and where they're located. And again, folks are being transferred to some of these, but also being transferred outside of Louisiana. And so here you can see there's flights going to Washington, looks like some Southern California and all across the country, and then as well as other countries. Here you can see Cuba and others. So again, this is really just, I just thought it was a great visual to just be able to show what it looks like, and then it kind of goes into the actual article there. But yeah, I think it's a really good visual just to kind of see what the steps or the path that immigrants are facing as folks are being detained, and as the federal government builds this really national network to be able to detain people. And we know oftentimes when people are detained, they're not always detained in the state that they live in, for example, and that's also very intentional. So we may see, for example, as one of the maps indicated, right, that we may have folks from California that are maybe being sent to Louisiana, far away from their networks, their family, their support systems, and then makes it also more difficult for them to be able to get access to immigration attorneys and other legal support. So that is just an example, right, in Louisiana. But again, we've talked about Texas here in Florida, who have also been very much working in tandem with the Trump administration to expand their bed space and detain as much people as they can. So yeah, wanted to sort of just share that as well. Okay, wanted to also share a couple of state updates with folks, and then we'll move into some ways that folks can also engage. So first, wanted to make sure to flag, to make sure folks saw this, that all but 250 National Guard troops were ordered to leave Los Angeles last week. And so that is good news. At the peak in June, there was about 4,000 National Guard troops that were in the city, as well as 700 Marines. But again, that number, the Marines allegedly are now gone. And then again, the number of National Guards has dropped now to 250, and they remain at defending federal buildings there. But this is obviously a major update. And again, I think most folks fear that LA was sort of the first example of the use of National Guard troops to enforce immigration law, but obviously that may not be the last. And so again, we'll sort of see how this plays out. But for folks in Southern California, obviously the last 2 months have been, really difficult. And obviously the immigration agents are still there. Just because the National Guard has left, that doesn't mean the immigration agents have left. They are still rounding people up and arresting folks. So that obviously still continues. But obviously this is a major update just in terms of the federal presence as it relates to the National Guard and the Marines. And here there's an image from this show of force, I think is probably the best way to describe it, that that folks did in MacArthur Park, where they essentially just walk through the park and essentially were intimidating folks and really just trying to to be seen, and again to cause fear in the community as well. All right. And then the other update as it relates to California and detention centers, there is a new private prison that may be reopened soon. So actually tonight, there was a planning commission meeting in California City in Kern County, where they're going through sort of some of the final steps to potentially open this facility. And if it does open, it would have capacity for 2,500 immigrants, and it would be the largest detention facility in our state. And so again, as California continues to be targeted by the federal government, as more people are being arrested, they obviously need more and more capacity to hold folks. And so this is all part of that. And again, this is a private prison company, CoreCivic. And so obviously a lot to be worried about here. And then we've talked in the past as well about other potential venues that have been rumored to potentially become immigration detention centers. And so obviously this is not the only one. And the federal government continues to look for different spaces and detention centers to utilize to hold more and more immigrants. So yeah, deeply concerning. And again, I want to encourage folks to be on the lookout for that. If you're hearing rumors or talks about immigration detention centers opening up in your community, definitely let us know. And it's important for folks to speak out. Obviously, as I shared in the other slide, a lot of the venues that are being used, for example, are Army bases or National Guard training facilities, right? So obviously there's a lot of these spaces are, the federal government does have a lot of authority and say over what happens there. But that doesn't mean that we should be silent and that we should allow that to still happen without letting our voices be heard. So it is important. And so for folks in Kern County and California City who have been pushing back on this, they've attended various city council meetings and they've held various actions and events to raise awareness about this and to try and put a stop to this. And so I think it's really important for us to follow their lead and continue advocating to stop any additional detention centers in our state. We were moving in the right direction in terms of shutting down detention centers and prisons and all that. And I think this is really a reminder that, we're obviously heading in the other direction now. So just wanted to take a moment to also share that. All right, a few ways that folks can take action. If you have joined our summer recess lobbying program over the summer. You've heard about this bill. It's a bill that we're lobbying on, and this is a bill that SB 627, the No Secret Police Act. It would ensure that law enforcement at all levels operating in California cannot conceal their identities. So much of what we're seeing in Southern California and all across the country is law enforcement being masked and really trying to hide their identities, and really causing widespread panic and fear in our communities. Oftentimes when, if you can imagine if someone like this is showing up is approaching you or showing up at your door, it's hard to know who they are. And I think it's really just caused a lot of widespread fear. So I've listed some of the or all of the authors and co-authors. Obviously there's a support beyond these, but obviously if you see your representative's name here, that's a good thing. If you do not see them here, would encourage folks to call the representative and ask them to support this bill. Right now, the state legislature is on break until next Friday, so they've got a little bit left, but then they're going to come back, and this bill will be coming up for a vote soon. So just wanted to sort of flag this, and again, encourage folks to call their state representative and encourage them to support this bill. Again, there's a lot of good that could come from this in terms of trying to address what is happening. Lovely, yes, it sounds like folks are going to a town hall that McNerney is hosting tomorrow. And yes, McNerney is supporting this bill, so good news there. And then that is a state bill. At the federal level, there's also a similar bill called the Visible Act that is introduced by California Senator Alex Padilla, as well as Cory Booker from New Jersey. And the Visible Act would require federal agents to wear visible ID showing the agency they work for and a name or badge number, and would ban ski masks and other non-medical face covering. So similar to the statewide bill, but again, this is a federal bill, and so I think it could also have more teeth in terms of enforcement for federal agents. And I've also listed the co-sponsors, so it includes Schiff, our other senator, but also senators from other states. Obviously, anytime a bill makes its way through Congress, it needs to pass both the state and the House. And so we also want to encourage folks to sign a petition here, which again, we'll link to tell Congress to pass this bill. And we want to encourage folks as well to call their member of Congress to support the bill and to come out for it and to push it. Obviously, we know this is an uphill battle. Passing anything in Congress is a challenge, but I do think it's really important for folks to speak out about what's happening, and it really is a sensible bill that I think could make a huge difference, and again could reassure folks in terms of what we're seeing. There's been stories, right, of folks being apprehended, and folks are wearing masks and they don't know who they are, and so showing an ID and not covering folks' faces and all that is pretty straightforward, and I think could go a long way in helping the situation in terms of what we're seeing now. And so with that, as was commented, McNerney is holding a town hall. Congress is also on a break right now, so they are on break through all of August, and they're going to be coming back in September. So right now they're on recess. So definitely want to encourage folks to be on the lookout if your member of Congress is hosting a town hall or other community event, to make sure that you attend, go out, listen, ask questions, ask them to support the Visible Act. But if for whatever reason they're not holding any public events, you can also call their office directly. It's always important as constituents for you to call them. So obviously, as I shared, both of our senators are supporting the bill, obviously, but your member of Congress in the House maybe is not, and so, or maybe they're not aware of it, and so it's important for folks to make sure that they are, and that they're supporting it and doing everything they can to move that bill forward. And then lastly, there's also an opportunity to schedule in-district lobby visits. So we do have some materials and some support that we could provide. So if you are interested in hosting or in trying to schedule an in-district lobby visit with your member of Congress, particularly if you think that they need to hear about this bill, or if you feel like you haven't heard enough from them as it relates to immigration, or you want them to do more. I think this would be a great way for you to connect with them, pull together your community members or other folks that are in support of these issues, and to meet with them to share more about the bill and other issues. So again, feel free to reach out to us if you are interested in doing that, and we'll see if we can support you with that. But definitely make sure you are signed up as well to your representatives' email lists. That's generally where they will share information about their upcoming town halls, especially in this moment. A lot of the town halls, they're less public in terms of the advertisement, for a variety of reasons in terms of security, but also Republicans, for example, are generally shying away from holding town halls because they're afraid of getting called out in the way that we've already seen images of that happening. So if you're a member of Congress isn't hosting a town hall, or if you're not aware of it, I would definitely encourage you to go to their website, sign up for their email list, and generally that's when they let folks know about upcoming events. You can also follow them on social media to make sure that you are up to date on any events that they're hosting, or other ways that you can get in touch with them. They may have other ways to communicate with them beyond that. So definitely want to encourage folks to do that. All right, so before we move to the discussion piece, I did just want to pause and see if anybody has any questions, especially just related to congressional summer recess or the bills that I mentioned, or any of the other updates that I shared from the national or state level. And then feel free to use the raise your hand feature or drop the question into the Q&A. And that will also be helpful in terms of trying to capture all the questions.
I haven't seen any questions in the chat yet or in the Q&A, Luis.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll pause for a second, just to see if anybody has any questions or again has any thoughts on the congressional summer recess or the bills. But if not, we will move forward with the discussion portion. And then one last thing I'll just note on this is, as I mentioned, these can be uphill battles in terms of getting them to pass in the House. But again, it is important that we show that we are actually doing something and that we're, trying to hold folks accountable there. We've got a question about MacArthur Park. Yeah, my understanding is that for the most part, the park essentially cleared out. Like it was really just a theater, essentially. If the park closed out, folks, I'm not aware of anyone being arrested, but it was, even from the images, it looked like it was very much just them walking and again trying to intimidate folks and sort of show force. So yeah, that's sort of what I saw. Info about the possibility of the detention center in Dublin. That has definitely still been rumored and discussed and is still a possibility. There is a lot of different organizations. Just the last week or maybe the week before, if I'm not mistaken, there was some activity and actions that they're hosting, and so that is ongoing. So if you are in the Bay Area and you're interested in getting involved in the work around trying to prevent a detention center in Dublin, definitely reach out and we can plug you into those efforts, because there is definitely a huge movement already of a ton of organizations locally that are doing really amazing work to try and make sure that doesn't happen.
Does it really help to call or email a very conservative member of Congress?
Great question. I mean, I think obviously that is, you're going to know them more than I know your member. But I will say that, at the end of the day, they work for you. At the end of the day, they are your representative. So I don't think it hurts. So I think, it is important to make sure that they are hearing from someone else, right? Even if they may be hearing more from constituents that, don't like immigrants or that support these policies. they should know that it's not unanimous, that there are people in their community that are concerned about what's happening, and that that we're here, even if you are a smaller number of people in the particular district.
I went to a lobby day in DC a couple of months ago and met with a conservative member of Congress from California. I don't live in that district, but we were lobbying that office on some ACLU issues, and they said, get me some calls from constituents and we'll consider it. So I got some calls from constituents, and the issue is, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it's still pending, but it definitely can make a difference. Luis, did you want to take a couple more questions?
Yeah.
Let's see. There is a question here about, I think, what's going on with DACA.
What happens to the people when under DACA? Yeah, I mean, I think as of now, obviously the program still exists. Folks who have DACA currently, that program is still live, but obviously there is pending court cases related to that, and things could change. So yeah, I would encourage folks who have DACA to continue to renew it, continue seeking out resources to make sure that is happening. And then to just stay up to date in terms of the court cases that are happening. But again, the things are sort of in a holding pattern in terms of any changes around DACA. But obviously, the president could make a decision or change that. But at the moment, there hasn't been any major changes around that. Let's see.
There's a few questions about ICE. One about whether a lot of people are being targeted at the Fresno immigration office and being arrested by ICE. And then also about whether medical or IRS information is being handed over to ICE.
Yes. So yeah, I think folks are definitely seeing ICE arrests outside of immigration check-ins. We talked about this last month, right? Folks are being asked to go check in for their immigration proceedings, and that is a requirement, right? It's part of the process, and then they're being arrested then. Also at courthouses, so maybe someone is going to do, their criminal case. They have a case at court, and we're also seeing immigration showing up there. So I think it's clear that immigration is definitely getting creative and going through different venues and locations to try and get folks. So yes, that is definitely happening in Fresno and all across the state, I should say. In Sacramento, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago now, right? It was like a Home Depot parking lot, which we've also seen in Southern California. But yeah, I think look to what's happening in Los Angeles as sort of like a preview, I would say, in terms of the tactics that they're using, and that they could potentially utilize in other parts of the state as well. In terms of sharing information, that has definitely happened. There's definitely a lot of concerns about different agencies sharing information with ICE. I don't know off the top of my head which ones particularly, but it could potentially be. I think it was IRS, and then I think folks are also concerned about other agencies in the federal government sharing information. Obviously, in the past, that has been frowned upon, and that hasn't happened. But again, we're sort of entering this new era where the Trump administration is really focused on numbers and trying to detain as many people as possible. And so obviously the collection of data and being able to find folks with that data, I think is definitely a big concern for folks. All right, we've got, I think there was concerns over presidential directive against sanctuary cities. Yeah, that is to be seen how that's going to look like. Obviously, there's a lot of threats to cutting of funding for California as a state, and then as different jurisdictions that don't collaborate with ICE. A couple months now at this point, the Trump administration released a list of what they called sanctuary cities, and then they deleted that list because a lot of cities or jurisdictions were classified as sanctuary, even though they claimed they weren't. But I think that's definitely a concern. That remains a concern in terms of trying to target the federal government targeting the state and other jurisdictions in California with funding cuts due to their pro-immigrant policies. Do any of the local police departments help people that are being harassed by ICE? Does it do any good to call the police if we see people being kidnapped by masked ICE people? That is a great question. I think in terms of calling the police, that is, uh, I think that depends on who you are, and your own opinions or thoughts on calling the police. I think this is part of that concern is that the more people sort of combine or view immigration as any other law enforcement, I think it sort of creates mistrust in general with law enforcement more broadly, and I think people are less likely to call the police when incidents happen. So I think I would recommend folks call the rapid response hotlines. I think that when you see immigration in your community, I think it's important to utilize the rapid response networks to call them, to notify them, so that way then they can, the rapid response networks can get involved or support the folks who are being detained by ICE or being harassed by ICE. I think, yeah, I'm not aware of a lot happening in terms of police. There was a few examples of folks who were pretending to be ICE and then were apprehended because they weren't ICE and you know went on to commit crimes. And so in that example, that is the situation. But again, I'm not sure how helpful it's actually going to be to call the police if you see people that are being arrested by ICE. I think that's a little bit probably out of their hands in terms of what they could actually do. Okay, we'll answer a couple more questions here. We've got a nonprofit organization, which I belong to, opposes ICE activities, particularly the manner used. Is there a method we can use that will not jeopardize our 501c3 status? I think somebody asked this question a couple of sessions ago. And actually, I think you had a good response. It was like, obviously, we're not attorneys and we cannot give you legal advice. And so we want to encourage you to get that advice because we can't support you directly or we can't give you legal advice. But we do know that they have sent, for example, letters asking a bunch of nonprofits for more information about their activities and what they're engaging, what kind of work they're engaging on in that could be concerning. But I think that is definitely yeah, that's concerning just in terms of the way that they are targeting nonprofits and others. But yeah, feel free to reach out if you would like more resources, but I don't think we can give you like individual advice in terms of what you could do for your own nonprofit, but we can definitely point you in the right direction in terms of getting more support for those types of things. What do we know about separation of families? Kids being placed in foster care while parents detained who have refused to voluntarily deport. Yeah, I think there is also some news on this front in terms of families being separated. So you know, the Trump administration has this policy of trying to detain families units right together. And then I have seen that sometimes folks are given the option of either being all deported together or being separated. So I think this is sort of the beginning of things, and I think it's yet to be seen sort of what happens at a broader scale. But I think these sort of stories and examples are starting to come up again in terms of what happens when families are detained, especially when folks are from mixed statuses. So definitely keep an eye out, and particularly if you hear about it in your community, or if you're seeing examples like this, I think it's important. Okay, last question. I think Palm Springs Police Chief has said call them to determine who the federal officials are. Okay, but it appears arrests are lawful. Palm Springs Police will not block the feds. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what I was saying. I think I'm not sure there's a lot that local law enforcement can do if somebody is being arrested, because immigration, you know, generally does have the ability to arrest people. And so it's unlikely that local law enforcement would get involved. But for example, if you do see someone impersonating ICE, or if you have reason to believe that someone isn't actually an ICE agent, obviously that would be concerning. And I think that's maybe something that that folks can get involved with. Great. And then Ashley dropped a link to the rapid response network or networks. There's a ton of numbers, so make sure that you've saved the local number and you know who to call. Yeah, great. Thank you all for sharing links there. And then, yes, I'm not sure what where the family preparedness guide comes from, but there are a lot of good guides that really walk through the different steps for how to make sure that folks are preparing in the event that. Thank you, Ashley. There's a great resource by ILRC. It really walks through different steps that people can take to prepare in the event that there is risk in terms of family separation, making sure folks have a plan and do all the proper preparations in case that worst case scenario comes true. Okay, I'm gonna move us into the discussion. So during our last session last month, we talked about various ways that folks can get engaged. So we talked about the rapid response networks. We talked about how folks can take advantage or take a look at what's happening in their communities and how they can flag whenever there is ICE activity, or how they could talk to businesses in their communities to make sure that they are being more proactive. But I wanted to sort of open it up as well, and feel free to use the raise hand feature and we can have you unmute. But would love to hear from folks in terms of what you're seeing on the ground. We had some folks share that they're seeing some activity in Fresno around immigration hearings, but would love to see if folks are seeing anything else. And then additionally, we'd love to also know if there are particular trainings, tools, or resources that would be helpful for us to provide. So for example, this family preparedness plan, we could certainly, spend an hour talking about the plan and what it entails and what are the different pieces that are there. But maybe there's other trainings or tools that you think would be helpful for us to provide and to be able to share. And again, as we've done other past sessions, we can spend more time on that one topic. So yeah, just wanted to sort of pause, hear from folks. Feel free to raise your hand. And again, you can respond to either of these questions. But again, would love to just hear from folks in terms of what you are hearing and seeing on the ground. And just quickly, someone asked if the ACLU provides consultations. So we definitely have a lot of, we can refer folks. We have referral information if you're talking about like immigration stuff. But I think generally that'll probably be the most likely scenario that we can refer you to other partners and other organizations that are trusted legal service providers. But we do have a legal hotline as well, so you can also call that number, and I'll include that in the follow-up email. You can call that number or fill out the legal intake line, and folks will be able to take a look at whatever concern you have. But again, if you're referring to immigration services, likely that'll be a referral to other providers. And thank you, Ashley provided that link there, so you can follow that to get the intake number or the online intake if you want to flag anything legal to us. And Patty, I see you have your hand up. If you want to go ahead and unmute.
Yes, I have a question. Do you have any organization who's taking care of the pets? That is, when people are being taken out and deported, I haven't heard nothing about it, and I know there's a lot of animals that are just left there and no one to take care of, or neighbors taking these animals and they don't have resources where to go. Have you heard some kind of help for this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not familiar either, but I can definitely do some digging and send out some resources that if I find something. But yeah, I would definitely encourage folks to include that as part of the family preparedness, right? Your animal, and make sure that you're thinking about what your options are there. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure if there's sort of an organization or a group that's helping directly with that. But I will make sure to include that in the follow-up email if I can find something. But thank you for raising that important question. Others, folks are joining from different parts of the state. So again, I would love to hear, are you seeing immigration activity locally? I think oftentimes what we see is that there's a lot of rumors where people will see a vehicle that is, tinted and they assume it's ICE or some sort of law enforcement that's in a vest and they assume it's ICE. But curious what folks are seeing as well, if folks are able to share. Carolina shared that there is some tabling that's happening at Home Depots. People sign up for morning shifts. If they see ICE, they call a rapid response number. Yes, that's great. Karen, so your hand is up. Oh, I just asked you to unmute. Let me know if that worked.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, the lady that comes in and helps me with housework and stuff on Thursday, she's from Mexico. She said that she saw them hanging around Target looking for people. I haven't shopped at Target lately, so I myself have gone to 3 protests in Dublin. I've been going to a local Indivisible puts together some really they're really good at really organized. So, but, yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go over to Target and check it out.
Yeah, and definitely encourage her to call the hotline and your networks to call the hotline. That way folks can also let others know if it is confirmed.
You know those little cards that they give out?
Mhm.
I gave her some of those. You have the ones in English and Spanish, and I'd like to get more of those.
Yeah, I'll share our contact email momentarily, but you can definitely reach out to us if you're interested in getting
Okay.
some resources. Yeah,
Okay.
Ashley just put the changemakers at aclunc.org. Feel free to reach out to us. We can definitely send you some red cards or other Know Your Rights info. Great. But yeah, I think that also just raises a good point, right? If you see immigration or someone or something that you suspect is immigration, I think utilizing the rapid response networks again is really useful in terms of being able to have folks confirm. So the way that the rapid response networks work is that folks flag a suspected ICE activity, and then generally they'll send out volunteers or other folks to confirm whether they're or not they are actually ICE, and then they're able to then take the adequate steps. So if they're not, then they can let people know, hey, this was just false, or hey, it's actually the local police department or the sheriff's. Or if it is actually ICE, then they can then warn other people and let people know that confirmed sighting at Target in whatever location, and then people know that they can avoid that location as well. Okay, well, anyone else want to share? Are there any school districts that are helping parents fill out the family preparedness sheets? Yeah, I think that's another great suggestion of like ways that folks can be supportive. For example, if you have a child at one of the schools, you can approach the school, you can talk to the teacher or the principal or the school board member and ask them, what are they doing? Are they providing Know Your Rights trainings, or are they providing these sessions where they can help people fill out family preparedness plans? I think we should be asking everyone to do more and to do their part. And I think the schools have a big responsibility to make sure that they are providing that type of information and that they're supporting people who could be impacted by immigration. So yeah, I can't say off the top of my head whether I know that this is happening, but again, I would encourage you to ask your school to do this, because I think it's something they definitely can. Yeah. Right. Okay. All right. Ashley, did I miss any other question?
There is 1 question in the Q&A. What about the legality of immigration enforcement officials breaking windows to take people out, to take out those in the car? Can that be reported as a crime?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, obviously, that is frightening. But obviously that's also something that we're seeing, right, in terms of like immigration using force to arrest individuals. So, you know, whether that's in the car or at somebody's home. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, I'm not sure what, you know, liability or what recourse you have in terms of challenging when that happens. But obviously, for example, if they're doing that and you're not, or you have status, or you're a U.S. citizen, for example, or they've got the wrong person, then I think there is ways for you to challenge that that arrest in its entirety. But I'm not sure, you know, if there's sort of anything else you can do if they're sort of doing that because they're trying to arrest you and they're looking for you. But yeah, I think that might be a little bit different. But again, not a lawyer. Would encourage you to seek legal counsel if that happens, because obviously there may be some things that you could do again to challenge that their behavior or the way they arrested you, even if they were actively looking for you, for example. Great. Okay, we've got some other links that folks are posting, so encourage folks to follow those. But we'll go ahead and close out for the evening. And again, please do reach out to us, changemakers@aclunc.org. Again, especially if you're interested in getting resources as it relates to the red cards or know your rights information, or if you have any particular questions about different resources or suggestions for future webinar topics. We'd love to hear your feedback, or if you have some ideas for potential topics that we could cover or dig into as well, we'd love to have that. But with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up, and we thank you all for joining us. I hope everybody has a great night. Thank you.